It was past midnight, and the towering office building stood silent against the city skyline. Most of the lights were out save for a few glowing windows. Inside, the polished floors gleamed under the dim hallway bulbs, a reflection of hours of unseen work. And there, moving quietly with her cart, was Amara, the night cleaner. She pushed her mop and broom with steady hands, her back aching from long shifts, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. Unlike many who dragged themselves through night labor, Amara carried a secret with her, a stack of worn second-hand textbooks tucked carefully beneath her cleaning supplies. When the clock struck 12, she paused her work. Instead of resting, she pulled the books from her cart, sat cross-legged in a corner of the lobby, and switched on the faint glow of her phone flashlight. The building, so vast and intimidating by day, now became her private study hall. Page after page she scribbled notes, her lips moving silently as she reviewed formulas and diagrams. Her dream was clear: to become an architect, to design structures far grander than the one she now cleaned. But for now she had only dim light, tired eyes, and unshakable determination. What Amara didn't know was that she wasn't alone that night. The building's owner, Mr. Whitmore, a millionaire known for his cold, impatient ways, had returned unexpectedly to retrieve some forgotten documents. As he stepped into the lobby, his footsteps echoed sharply against the marble floor. His eyes narrowed as he spotted a small figure huddled in the corner, not cleaning but reading. He stopped in his tracks, stunned at the sight of a cleaner using his building as a study hall. To him it seemed absurd, even insulting. Yet there she was, oblivious to his presence, lost in her pursuit of knowledge. And in that quiet moment, a story began that neither of them could have predicted. Mr. Whitmore's polished shoes clicked sharply against the marble as he approached his presence, breaking the silence. Amara flinched when she realized someone was watching. Her book snapped shut, her heart pounding as though she had been caught committing a crime. "What is this?" the millionaire demanded, his voice deep and edged with irritation. "You're supposed to be cleaning, not camping out here like it's your own study room." His cold eyes flickered from the bucket and mop to the textbooks scattered at her feet. Amara's throat tightened. She scrambled to her feet, clutching the worn books to her chest as if they were fragile treasures. I'm sorry, sir. I clean during my shift, but when I take a break, I use the time to study. I didn't want to waste the hours." Her words tumbled out nervously, each syllable weighed with fear. She expected him to dismiss her instantly, maybe even fire her on the spot. But Mr. Whitmore wasn't satisfied. He scoffed, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. "Study? For what? You're a cleaner. That's your job. You think reading those old books will magically change that?" His words sliced through the air, sharp and dismissive. He had built his fortune believing only the strongest survived, and to him, Amara's dreams sounded like childish fantasies. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Amara's eyes glistened, but she held her ground. "Sir," she whispered, voice trembling but steady, "I know I don't look like much to you, but these books, they're my chance. Maybe no one believes in me, but I believe in myself, and that's enough for me to keep going." Her words caught him off guard. He hadn't expected defiance, certainly not from a cleaner. For a brief second, something flickered across his face. A memory, a pang of recognition. He turned his gaze away, hiding the strange unease that twisted in his chest. Without another word, he left the lobby, his sharp footsteps echoing, as Amara slowly sank back down to the floor, shaken but unbroken. She didn't know it yet, but this confrontation had planted a seed, one that would soon change both of their lives. That night, long after leaving the office, Mr. Whitmore couldn't shake the image from his mind. He sat in his penthouse apartment, city lights flickering outside his tall windows. But his thoughts weren't on his empire or his wealth. They were on the young woman hunched over books in the dark. It unsettled him. He had seen hundreds of cleaners, workers, employees come and go. Most accepted their roles quietly. But Amara, she carried herself differently. There was determination in her eyes, a fire he couldn't quite dismiss. Pouring himself a drink, he sank into his leather chair and stared at the glass. Her words echoed in his head. Maybe no one believes in me, but I believe in myself. It was a strange kind of courage, one he remembered from another lifetime. Before the luxury, before the success, before the arrogance, he too had once been just a boy with nothing but big dreams and borrowed books. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten what that hunger felt like. He had drowned it under money, power, and pride. The reflection weighed heavier as the hours passed. He began to question himself in ways he hadn't in years. Had he become the very man he once despised, the kind who mocked ambition instead of nurturing it? He thought of the people who had once taken a chance on him, the mentors who had believed when no one else did. If they had laughed at him the way he had laughed at Amara, would he even be sitting here now? For the first time in a long time, Mr. Whitmore felt shame creep in. It wasn't the kind that money could hide or pride could silence. It was raw, humbling, and real. And as the night wore on, he made a quiet promise to himself. The next time he saw that cleaner with her books, he would not turn away. The following evening, Amara returned to her shift, weary yet determined as always. She moved quietly through the lobby, her cart rattling across the polished floor. Though the confrontation still lingered in her mind, she refused to let it break her. When the clock struck midnight, she once again reached for her books, shielding the pages with the glow of her phone's flashlight. For her knowledge was worth the risk. But this time, she wasn't alone. From the shadows of the corridor, Mr. Whitmore watched silently. Unlike before, there was no scowl on his face, no trace of arrogance, only thoughtfulness. For a moment he hesitated, almost embarrassed to approach. Finally, he cleared his throat, startling Amara. She looked up, bracing herself for another scolding. Instead, his voice was different, calmer, softer. "You remind me of someone I used to know," he said, his eyes lingering on the books in her hands. "A kid who once studied under streetlights because home was too dark. That kid was me." Amara froze, stunned. The man who had mocked her now stood confessing a piece of his past. He went on, his words uncharacteristically raw. "I lost that hunger somewhere along the way. I forgot what it was like to fight for something no one else believed in. Watching you, it reminded me." His gaze met hers, steady and sincere. "Don't stop, ever." For the first time since she'd met him, Amara saw not the cold, untouchable millionaire, but a man who had once walked a path very much like hers. In that moment, the power shifted not in wealth, but in respect. And with those simple words, something remarkable happened. The wall between them cracked, and the story of a new beginning quietly began to unfold. Weeks passed, and Amara's late-night studies no longer went unnoticed. Instead of disapproving glares, she now found quiet encouragement. One evening she arrived at the building only to discover something that made her stop in her tracks. Waiting for her in the lobby was Mr. Whitmore, not in a suit of intimidation, but in a more human light, with a stack of brand-new textbooks and a sleek laptop resting on the desk. "You shouldn't have to study in the dark," he said, his tone carrying both authority and warmth. "If you're going to chase your dreams, you should at least have the right tools." Amara's eyes widened, her hands trembling as she touched the books. No one had ever invested in her like this. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then, with tears welling in her eyes, she whispered, "Why are you doing this?" Mr. Whitmore smiled faintly, a rare softness breaking through his hardened exterior. "Because once upon a time, someone did it for me, and I would have been nothing without that chance." From that night on, Amara's journey began to change. With his quiet support, she applied for scholarships, gained entry into an architecture program, and began shaping the future she had once only dreamed about. And though Mr. Whitmore was still the formidable businessman the world knew to Amara, he had become something far greater. Proof that even the coldest hearts could remember their roots, and even the most powerful could choose to lift others instead of stepping on them. The surprise was not only that Amara's life had taken a new path, but that Mr. Whitmore's had as well. In helping her, he rediscovered something priceless: compassion, purpose, and the reminder that wealth isn't measured by money alone, but by the lives we choose to touch. And so what began as a simple discovery in the dark became a turning point for two very different lives. Amara, the cleaner who dared to dream, proved that determination shines even in the shadows. Mr. Whitmore, the millionaire who once mocked her, rediscovered the very fire that had built his empire. Together, their story reminds us of a powerful truth. Greatness is not defined by where you start, but by the courage to keep moving forward, no matter who doubts you. We often forget that a single act of belief, a single hand reaching out, can change the course of someone's life. Amara's persistence lit a spark in herself and in the man who least expected to be moved by her. And in helping her rise, Mr. Whitmore found something far more valuable than money. He found purpose. So, let this be a reminder to never underestimate your own dreams, no matter how impossible they may seem, and to never withhold kindness, because you never know when your support could be the key to unlocking someone else's future. In the end, the true measure of success is not in what we have, but in how we use it to make the world a little brighter.